Hello, welcome back. Another beautiful morning, and we get into the newspaper review. Let me say a very good morning to Mapinto Sibiri.
Good morning, Benjamin. How you doing?
I'm okay. You've made me remember that, when I just did this, there's this whisper song. Do you remember?
Yeah. It was very vulgar. Benjamin.
I just remember that. I mean, you would be, so it's such a whisper, you'd be wondering, so you now have to listen closely and find out what the person is saying. Who sang that song even?
I don't remember. I think he had dreads or something, but yeah, I don't know.
We'll Google it.
Yeah, but the whisper song, that's a very, it's too early in the morning to think about songs like that.
No, it just came to mind because I whispered and I remembered. Anyway, so it's another beautiful day. We're about to get into the news review. But before we do so, especially as I see Akakpo here, talking climate change and all of that, I found it interesting. The last thing we heard from him yesterday was talking about, in Glasgow, COP26, before this one in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, there were some commitments, and that wouldn't have been the first time that commitments have been made, especially to African countries, developing countries, those that are climate vulnerable, who have contributed very little to the dynamics of climate change, global warming, yet they face the brunt of it, and they have not been met. But I found it interesting when Mr. President was saying, you know what, if you're not going to give us those sums of money, eventually, all the billions of commitment that have been made, how about our loans? The debt we owe you, you factor that in and say, you know what, you're forgiven in exchange for, and I was thinking, hey,
Ghana beyond AIDS.
Wake up.
Wake up. Hey, Mr. President. Mr. President is Chale. All right, so let's go to Zoom, and Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, who's a political scientist at University of Ghana, joins us for the news paper review. Doc, good morning.
Good morning, my sister, and how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Perfect.
Great. All right, so what's your thinking on that right before we get into the papers with the Daily Guide? So Mr. President is saying you may not be able to meet your commitments. You've committed, you've promised time and again. How about you factor that into our loans, the debt we owe you, and maybe say you're forgiven this as a contribution towards fighting climate change on the continent. What do you make of it? Good call?
It's a good proposal. There are two aspects that we can look at. One is that, yes, you are in debt and you want your debt to be forgiving you. Yes, there's nothing wrong about that. You need to negotiate and then make convincing arguments, and that is what the president has put forward to the people. Now it is the responsibility of those that Ghana owe to, to accept or reject that proposal. The other bit is that, what about if they said, no, we are not going to give you anything, but that you definitely have to pay the debt that you owe us? What becomes of that? It gives us a certain lesson that we don't want to, be on this type of waters, dangerous waters, that we are the mercy of the powers that be, that they can push us over anytime they feel so, because we owe them. Let us not create a debt only to go and negotiate for its cancellation and all that. We can, because if you look at the president's speech last time, he was telling us that they will do well to bring the debt burden to about 53%. Then my question to Mr. President is, for all these years, that what forced you into what? Accumulating debt, all right? Did you even know that you could also work it this way so that you work towards that 53% or even less? I think now we will not belabor the point. We are in, problem, and that there is always the need for us to sit down, reflect, and then find solution. So for me, yeah, a good call, but that is my hope and prayer that if this call is listened to by the powers that be, we will not start accumulating debt anymore. Even if we are going to do, it is going to be what? Minimal.
All right, then, let's get into the daily guide. And the big story there is redeem $100 billion climate change pledge, Nana to developed economies. Also, MPs request stoke pressure to downsize government. Baumea floors Mahama in the latest poll. And number 12, asked to appear in court on March. We also have the ex-Beige Bank CEO who got a 200 million Ghana cedi bail. But let's go to page 6. Where the MPs, page 6, where the MPs request stoke pressure to downsize government. So recent calls by some NPP members of parliament for the removal of Ken Ofori-Atta, who's the finance minister, has triggered fresh pressure on President Akufo-Addo to also reduce the size of his government. According to analysts, merely replacing Ken Ofori-Atta and Charles Edu Boahin would not solve the country's economic problems because the crisis is far bigger than that. It appears that the request by the 80 MPs recently has opened the floodgates for some MPP members to add their voice to the call for a downsizing of the government. Another person who has added his voice to that call is Professor Peter Kwata, who's the director of Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research of the University of Ghana. The director of Policy, Engagement and Advocacy at the CDD, Dr. Emmanuel Kojo Asante, also said the same thing, that the current economic challenges facing the country, the president has to cut in government appointees to make things easier for Ghanaians. We also have Baumea floors Mahama in latest poll that's also on page 6. So despite the global economic challenges, which is having a devastating effect on the Ghanaian economy, it appears most Ghanaians have enormous confidence in the Vice President, Dr. Baumea, to provide a more reliable leadership at the next polls in 2024. Now, a research by UK-based Info and Assessment Research anticipates a straight fight between Vice President Baumea and the former President John Dramani Mahama at the next polls. And they subjected the two at a poll, asking respondents from a nationwide sample size of 254,759. Benjamin, you want to say something about that?
Oh, yes, most definitely. There have been different polls that have been conducted. In fact, we've had some of the research people from the presidency, the vice president's office. I remember Dr. Kabiru Mahama, among others, who have come here talking about the fact that maybe those polls were not so reflective. But there have been many polls as well that have put the vice president not in a good place. In fact, the last poll from Global Info Analytics says that the vice president would fare even poorly against Alan Chemartin, who has also been put forward as one of the leaders, and even far worse when it comes to the former president. So I'm just saying that looking at the polls from different angles, we shouldn't place too much. We should take them with a bit of a grain of salt. But I think when you look at the tenor of where we're headed, especially as he's seen to be the economic whiz kid and the way things are going, I don't think it places him in the best of positions. But let's see to someone who conducts polls here and there. Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, what do you make of this latest poll?
Well, very interesting. We are getting new information. It tells you what is ahead when we look at 2024. It's going to be very interesting. A whole lot of things will come to play. But if you look at the Ghanaian political plane, we're saying that for elections, there are a number of variables voters consider when they are voting. And one, the very top, is the economy. How strong is the economy? Is the economy healthy and all that? People base their votes on that. And that one is irrespective of party tradition, ideology, or other things that you can think of. Yes. So it is in the interest of this government to fix the economic problems if they really want to cash on that to campaign during 2024 election. There are other variables, but the economy is the one. We can talk about infrastructure development, which the Constitution says you can find in some provisions of the Constitution where it has to be every part of this country. All right, people should have a fair share of the infrastructure development. Is that what we are seeing now? You talk about the issue of corruption and all that, unemployment, education, and what have you. So they have a lot to do, but we are yet to see more of the polls. and then it's going to give us a sense of what to expect when we come to 2024. We are in interesting times relative to the polls.
I'd just like to find out, though, on the back of that, I think in recent times, the Afrobarometer and other surveys that are usually conducted, yes, the economy is one of the topmost, but I think it's been slipping a bit into about third position, corruption and others also at the forefront. But it still remains one of the most crucial issues that people look at, the economy, because it impacts us all. So most definitely. I don't know what the dynamics would be, because, I mean, if the economy were to become really good, far better, and all the things we're complaining about right now were flushed down the toilet, I'm sure some voters would change their minds, but I guess only time will tell, Doc.
Yeah, no, normally in the issue of Ghana is basically the economy. That is the most important factor that they consider. Other factors do count: corruption, rule of law, even perception of government with regard to corruption, its ability to rule according to the dictates of rule of law and whatnot. But the economy is the driving force. And it's not only in Ghana, in most parts of Africa. If you go to even developed world, it is one of the drivers. But in such jurisdictions, you realize that there are other factors that really come on top of this. But for Ghana, the economy is always number one. Maybe it will change this time. We want to see, but I have no doubt in my mind that it's going to be the game changer. All right.
All right, Doc, we also have Anas to appear in court unmasked. Let's just take a look at that. Now, the Supreme Court of Ghana has delivered a damaging blow to Anas Arumayao Anas after ordering the journalist to appear in open court without his usual face mask to face Kwesi Nyantakyi. Now, the highest ruling body in Ghana ruled on Tuesday morning that the journalist must appear in court without any face mask covering to testify in the case with the former Ghana FA president. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, the court has spoken. And for me, it's final. I mean, what the court says, if you have something to the contrary, I think the lawyers know what to do. Other than that, the court decision stands.
Well, I guess we'll leave it at that as the court goes through those processes, and Anas himself will have his lawyer go through the right processes to see whether this will be inimical to the fortunes of his client or whether this shall proceed. But we'll take it from there. Interestingly, he has another piece out on Galamsey as well. And maybe just to run this by you as I get into the Daily Graphic and talk about climate change. There's also President Akufo-Addo, and one of the 5 things he was on the billing to speak of or on in Sharm el-Sheikh on climate change was oceans, water bodies, and all of that, natural resources. And I was asking myself, really, when you look at our water bodies and all of that, because he had to basically tell the world what we had been doing to protect ourselves. And in the midst of climate change and everything that has gone on, the look of our water bodies, they look like some sort of beverage, that you've prepared. But it is what it is. Ghana receives climate change grant, $3 million to help cut emissions in forestry sector. And the World Bank has offered Ghana a $3 million grant to build the capacity of local communities affected by climate change, known as Enhancing Access to Benefits by Lowering Emissions, that is ENABLE. The grant was approved by the Multilateral Bank for Ghana as a further benefit for lowering emissions in the forestry sector. President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who disclosed this when he addressed a forum at Ghana's Pavilion at the ongoing 27th United Nations Conference on Climate Change, that is COP27 yesterday, said the country reduced emissions by 972,456 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent under the Cocoa Forest REDD Plus program. The Ministers of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation, Dr. Kweku Efriye, Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abu-Jinapor, Energy, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, and other state officials were at the forum, which was also attended by development partners and some participants in the COP27. Let me just stay on the climate bit and ask what your thoughts are on what I said. Yes, we're talking about these things, but what are we really doing in our country? And also add, Doc, The bit about 322, some stretch it to 350 Ghanaians going for COP27 has made it, all around. In Glasgow, COP26, we sent a similar number, and there was a lot of hue and cry. Here we are saying we've heard from different ministries telling us that a lot of them got sponsors, others, individually got all kinds of packages. I have my own concerns. I don't know whether you do too, because if you do the breakdown and you look at the numbers we are taking and the cost involved in our economic situation, it's a bit of a concern. Not to say that climate change is not important, because it is. Your take, Doc.
It's always a problem. Why do you need large numbers of people to be sent for such a program? Only a few people can do, provided they have what it takes to go and deliver. That's all. Sending more and incurring, cost on them, is it worth it? I mean, it's a very difficult question to answer. But if we really want to, up our game and then reduce costs in all these things, we can do. But if we want to go along these lines all the time, we are likely to have problems. It doesn't speak well of us as people who are struggling in terms of finance. We are not able to, address some of financial, responsibilities and all that. And we could allow a lot of people follow the president for a program that it can be handled by 6 or 10 people maximum. That is what they say, but I am sure that we could do better. We could do better because, look, if you look at the ministries, department, and agencies, there are very important people there who can, just a few of them can support the president in all the things that they do. So the numbers really is the case. And I don't know how we're going to address this. All the time, when people raise this, you see a justification here and there and all that. But let us remember that we owe it to ourselves, a duty to make sure that we protect and support this country through thick and thin, so that at the end of the day, all of us will realize our goals.
Doc, in about a minute, let's just wrap with these two stories. Page 16, investigates alleged bribery of MPs. Occupy Ghana petitions the special prosecutor. And the pressure group Occupy Ghana has petitioned the OSP to investigate allegations that an unnamed wealthy businessman attempted to bribe some members of parliament. The said businessman allegedly attempted to bribe MPs on the majority side to stop them from going ahead with their threat not to cooperate with the government if President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo did not sack the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta. According to Occupy Ghana, it had followed media interviews in which the majority leader and the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, Osei Mensah Bonsu, and the MP for Asante Akim North, and the Apia Kubi, had alleged that an unnamed wealthy businessman had made an attempt to bribe them. The pressure group said the alleged action of the said businessman was meant to influence MPs not to carry out their official duties, a situation which potentially constituted a corruption-related offense. And finally, strike. Labour Ministry drags 3 teacher unions before Labour Commission. And there's been a dramatic turn of events in the discussions between the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations and the 3 teacher unions over their strike over the government's failure to terminate the appointment of the acting Director General of the Ghana Education Service. So we are talking NAT, NAGRAT, and the CCTGH, that is the Concerned Teachers, Coalition of Concerned Teachers at Ghana. They have been hauled before the National Labour Commission. Quick reactions to this, and it's a wrap.
Right. I will look at the bribery thing. I'm surprised that the minister and then my classmate, Mr. Apia Kubi, will also want us to know that there was an effort on the part of a businessman to bribe them, and yet they are not ready to, disclose the person's name. I'm so surprised, because that attempt in itself is a crime, and that I don't want to see Parliament, trying to protect such an individual. What do they gain from this? Because they have demonstrated to the world that they did not want that fat envelope, so to speak, and that they didn't need anything from him, and then they sent him off. Why are you protecting him? Then it beats everybody's imagination. If they think that, if it is true that they really sacked the gentleman, they must continue from there by giving the person's name to us for us to know who that businessman was and what was his intention and all that. The state is interested in knowing this because we are trying to fight corruption. And here you have somebody who's very bold to bribe not only ordinary people, but people who represent us. It is a serious crime that we all have to rally behind Occupy Ghana to fight this. This cannot be swept under the carpet at all. Then I'll touch on the NATs and NAGRATs and all of them, the concerned parents and all that, their request for the removal of the new Director General of Education. It is a difficult story I'm following because I want to really understand. There is an information out there that there is a policy which says that before you take up any appointment in the education ministry, with regard to the topmost position, you should have been educationist yourself and all that. If that policy is true, then there is a problem that we need to really look at and handle very carefully. Other than that, the president has the right to appoint anybody, and that you don't need a special qualification to head some of the ministries.
Right.
Politically, from political standpoint, anybody can head any office, except a few offices where you need certain professionals, such as Attorney General and all that. But the rest, anybody can handle that. You remember Mr. Botchi, Kwesi Botchi, now Professor Botchi.
Right.
He was a finance minister and he was a lawyer and all that. So there's a difficulty, but I think that the stakeholders must sit down, reflect on these things, and see how best we can address this. The children are suffering, and the state is suffering. We don't want to compound.
Just to clarify, so when you mentioned that he was a lawyer, finance minister, you are fully aware that he also had all his finance-related or economics-related credentials, right? I didn't get that point.
Yes, I know that. I was coming to that. I know that we can cite Mr. Yasafo Mafu. Right. He was trained as an engineer and all that. We are saying that all that I want to drive home at is that not necessarily, it's not all the positions that you need a professional, so to speak, to be there.
All right.
Any person there, because we have the bureaucrats who support them. And in education ministry, we have seen people who are headed the place. And one example is Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, who is a medical doctor and all that. So if the minister himself, he will not need that qualification, what about others below him and all that? I think it's something we'll have to look at. Yeah.
All right, let's look at the Ghanaian Times now and redeem $100 million annual pledge President demands from rich countries. We also have Get Fund completes 2,259 projects since 2017 nationwide. And from Mr. Algalga, they say that we are alarmed by unprecedented economic meltdown. But some two interesting health stories here on page 25. This one says, include family planning in the NHIS. Now, the Bono Regional Officer of the National Population Council, Davis Aboje, has appealed to the National Health Insurance Authority to include family planning services to the National Health Insurance Scheme. He said this would motivate and increase the use of contraceptives among married as well as the sexually active adults to control population growth, ensure spacing of children, and reducing unwanted pregnancy. Mr. Aboje, in an interaction with some journalists, attributed increasing cases of unsafe abortion in the country to negative religious and cultural beliefs about the use of contraceptives. I beg your pardon. We also have the WHO calls for fair distribution of doctors in Ghana. The World Health Organization representative to Ghana, Dr. Francis Kasolo, has called for concerted action to bridge the equity gap in the distribution of doctors between rural and urban areas. He said the unfair distribution of doctors and other healthcare workers in the country was a threat to efforts towards improving the health and well-being of the people, and urged stakeholders to take action immediately. Benjamin, the family planning in the National Health Insurance Scheme, I mean, it's a good idea that we want to add it, but the most important thing is education.
Right.
Yeah, because some people, if you go to the villages or you go to the rural areas, that the girls, they don't know what contraceptions or contraceptives are.
Yeah.
You know, so I think we need to start with educating? Because you can put it on the
We've seen
scheme.
people actually think that you can use any form of polythene product to actually, like a condom, basically. Oh, you haven't heard. In the past, you would see, yes, some people, that's the level of lack of knowledge. Yes.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
I think last year or something of the sort, there was an incident like that, and it was pretty problematic.
Yeah, that is problematic because you can put it in the scheme, people can have access to it, but because they don't know, they won't use it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doc, do you have any thoughts on that?
And maybe before you come in, Doc, again, it's becoming problematic because we seem to be going back to cash and carry, where, the Ghana card gives you the barest minimum, or in some cases, nothing at all, and you have to, sometimes, yes, it may get you a bed, but what if there are no beds? So it means that then basically the very basics you don't get, and everything you have to pay for it. I have an experience recently. I had to take someone to a major hospital. I just don't want to mention the name. And we had to cough up close to 1,000 cedis on the spot. A friend lost her father recently. When they went to another hospital, I'm talking public institutions, they had to cough up 2,000 because the person had to be admitted. So, and we've heard from the pharmaceutical, groups talking about the fact that now because of the credit and all of that, in fact, when you come, you must be carrying cash. I don't know what your reaction is. Doc? Right. It appears, Doc, but I just had to chip that in because, like we're talking about it, the weaknesses, the cracks in the system are really beginning to show. And now, look, if you go to hospital facilities, public ones, if you don't have money,
you won't get any.
I have experience in the last 1 month. A colleague of mine who had twins from I don't want to mention.
Oh yeah, I don't. Yeah.
But a major hospital in Accra. Another one in Legon, and the second one as well, when I was speaking about a friend's father who had passed, also in Legon. Trust me, if you're not carrying money,
it's going to be difficult for you. That's terrible. Because, looking at the economic crisis in the country, like, I don't have like 1,000 cedis. Well, most people don't have 1,000 cedis just to give to the doctors there and there.
Oh yeah, if the person is going to be on admission, for example, you must put that down as,
some sort of down payment.
Yes.
It's terrible because you never know when you'll get sick. You're fine now. Yeah. Tomorrow you might wake up and
you fall ill at dawn or something. Something is wrong with you. You don't have enough money. You go there. You can't make the deposit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know because in all these instances, we've been able to make the deposits. But I don't know what will happen if you are not able to make the deposits. But it's not going to be pleasant.
It's not going to be pleasant at all. And that's why, you see, this might sound very privileged. It's coming from a very privileged perspective, is that having some sort of savings or money for a rainy day. But people will say that, okay, I'm saving for a rainy day.
Or maybe even having private health insurance.
Having private health insurance. But how do you, get that? You don't have the money already to survive. You don't have the money to buy bread or kenke or whatever. And you're telling me about saving for a rainy day. There's a joke on Twitter. People say that, today I was saving for a rainy day. Tomorrow started raining.
It started raining.
Yeah, it's quite tough. But let's check out more of the papers, Ben.
Republic Press: AMA Sanitation Task Force arrests 16 persons in Akakpo South for open defecation. It costs our country so much money, Mapito, to deal with open defecation. And this is one area where I don't feel education has done enough. But then again, sanitation. Providing, there's this, in our bylaws and all of that. There are rules in every compound house and all that in terms of having toilet facilities.
Yeah.
But are the laws, the bylaws and all of that enforced? That is the question. Leave 4,000 Ghana cedis for your casket before you die. This has been trending. It's been on our platform. That's a head to family members. And now it's not just caskets that have shot up in price. Guess what?
Bibles.
Even your Bible.
Can you imagine?
Hey!
God will not be happy about this, please, we beg.
But our president is putting up a national cathedral.
No, please, we beg. He's putting for who? For himself or what? Who's he putting up for?
Now you can't even. Well.
But the Bible, dear, why?
It is what it is.
Is it a new version?
I've seen so many things. Hey. When I saw the Bible, Charlie.
Oh no, the Bible, dear. Why?
Hey, no, but there are reasons.
Well,
a lot of them are brought in from
yes.
China and South Korea. You know, it's interesting. South Korea, not, but China, South Korea, they are printed there. So it's still the dollar effect. It's having an impact on these products, and they can't keep bearing, you know, the cost of that. So you must pay, you must foot part of that. And it's not easy. But anyway, there's also rift opens in MPP as MP threatens Oforiatta. And the simmering rift between MPP members of parliament and the embattled finance minister has taken a dreadful dimension as the legislators promise a rancorous showdown in the House if Mr. Ken Oforiatta appears before them to present his 2023 budget statement. Although it is not yet clear when the minister will present his statement to the House, Member of Parliament for English Yamanfro Sylvester Tete has warned, should the majority side that they would be compelled to walk out on Mr. Oforiatta if he continues to make public statements that seem to preempt the outcome of a meeting the MPs have had with the president. So it appears now these are not the best of times for the finance minister, even within his own caucus in Parliament. So that is pretty much it. Yeah. Let me just do that story on page 4, the one that talks about the casket. Let me just get into a little bit of detail on that. So we proceed. So the head of a family in Kumasi has asked his family members to leave up to 4,000 Ghana cedis behind for their casket before they die. The Abusia Penyin said this in an interview with Unique News due to the increase in prices of coffins in recent times. According to the family head, his family will begin to adopt the Muslim method of burial. Now, a coffin which sold at 1,500 cedis is now selling at 2,500 cedis, while others that sold at 2,500 are now selling at 4,000 Ghana cedis. I might as well add this, Mapito. I feel we are too wasteful when it comes to weddings. You may have the money, and funerals. If we could have some assessment of how much we spend on funerals, I'm sure we spend so much. Why do we do that?
You see, with weddings, I can forgive them. I can forgive people. It's my first wedding. I want to have it all great and big. But it's the funerals that really gave me concern.
The person is gone.
The person is gone. You know, some people
You've done your best. Hopefully you've done your best for the person. God has taken the person anyway. We are now going to have savories. We're going to have a meal, drinks. We're going to organize. Charlie, the person is gone.
The person is gone. I think
yes.
The funerals
create some good memories, but
it's some way. Like I still don't understand your funeral culture, because with us, if the person
that is in South Africa.
Yeah, in South Africa. Right. Yeah, if you die, like let's say today's what being Wednesday, depending, from Wednesday, the funeral is next week Saturday. And
you know what?
And it's not as big or as grand as you guys make it to be. I mean, depending who the personality is.
No, I mean, if it's a very important person,
exactly.
Yes, sometimes there are. But here, everybody and the cost. You see families reeling, getting into economic crisis just because of a funeral. And you know the worst one? Where maybe sometimes the body is kept at the morgue for a long time, incurring rolling costs for a year, 2 years. I simply look, if I had the power, and I know there's culture, there's tradition, but I would ban some of these things and save us all a lot of headache. If I had the power, some of these things should go. It doesn't make any sense. It's part of the economic, it takes an economic toll on the country.
Yeah, because tomorrow we spent like 1 million Ghana cedis on the funeral on Saturday. Sunday, you're broke. You're broke.
And these weddings I speak of, young people are going in there trying to impress on. So whom are you trying to impress? You'll be there alone, or the two of you. You're going to, maybe me. Don't think that because you think what? Some people will say celebrity. And then, Master, you know, be celebrity, we go chop. The economy hard. If it's where I'll do what I can afford, we get out of there. You go and live your life. You go and do impress the people, and you go and be hungry.
The way Benjamin bought today, that means the economy is hard, though. Like,
Charlie? No.
Professor, English students.
We know what do.
The economy is really hitting you,
Charlie? Thursday, Friday. You see, I get like this when Thursday, Friday are approaching because I'll have to top up fuel and
okay.
It's getting there.
It's getting there. Okay, I topped up fuel last week Wednesday. I still have some, like a huge amount in my tank, and that is because I've just been going home, work. So I haven't
try doing any rounds. You see where you're.
Yeah, I haven't done any rounds. So Charlie, You people, our social lives are at stake here. Mr. President, as a celebrity, as an influencer.
International entertainment.
No, not entertainment.
Not entertainment.
Former
Are you thinking that?
Yeah. Mr. President, like how? My social life is at stake here. I can't be... Charlie.
You want to cheat with the big boys. You can't cheat anymore.
No, I'm the big boys. me, I'm the big boys. Yeah.
Let's bring in Dr. Asante. I hear he's joined the conversation. Your final thoughts, Dr. Asante. We're about to wrap.
Yes, I think I support the two of you, particularly Ben, that you don't support huge marriage ceremonies and then as well as funerals. I don't support the two myself. Why am I saying that? Why do you need to spend a whole fortune in getting married? And then later, when you are done with the marriage, how do you cope with life? We have seen people after weddings, they come back to borrow from poor people and all that. It doesn't make economic sense at all. Funeral, as you rightly pointed out, and my sister also did, that the person is gone. Why do you want to waste more money on that, on the funeral? I have heard a story where a chief was kept in the morgue for 9 years.
Oh.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? What is all this? I think we can do ourselves good by looking at this carefully and then see the best decision that we can take. I know certain countries, I spoke with somebody and said in France, the highest you can go is 1 week, and then you are buried and all that. Elaborate funerals, elaborate weddings and all that bring us nothing except cost, which we are not ready to pay. We don't even have the money to support that pay.
We don't even have the money, Benjamin. Doc, thank you so much for your time. So the economy is really, really hitting us hard. Ben, don't worry, it go be.
The economy is like a bulldog. Small or it go shake you.
Charlie?
It go do you.
It go do you something. Talking about doing, Muftau Nabila comes in with some sports. We're getting ready to go to Qatar.
Yeah, and there's a lot to talk about because some key names, Pencil, Afenajan, Schlupp, all of them are not making it to Qatar. And some have said for Afenajan, well, his statistics, 1 goal so far.
Yeah.
He's not in form, so take him out. But for Schlupp, who has been very consistent, and for Pencil as well, the goals, the assists, people are asking, how did that happen? Is it the usual happening in there? Well, we'll find out. Time for Sports Tuesday.